Hello, amazing ladies and gentlemen and winners from across the world. Thank you for joining in on our live. It's such an honourable pleasure having you with us. And I just want to say thank you for being with us. Now, firstly, if you're watching the recording, please like, share, and comment. If you're here live, like, share, and comment. And we have got our gang of absolute winners. Can we please give a wave to Karen Clark? Karen Clark, great seeing you. We've got Eileen Avard. We love you, Eileen Avard. And we've got the extremely dangerous Loretta Remy, who I absolutely love, which is good. So welcome. We've got a great panel lined up today. And today we're looking at the concept which we've titled From Survive to Thrive. And again, we want to look at it from the point of view of, hence, I'm obviously an old Arab bald male. We want to look at it from a lady's view and get that exact feedback. And we've got our first hello. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in. So I want to open this up with the amazing and wonderful Eileen Avard. We're going to open up with Eileen Avard, then we're going to bounce to Loretta, and then we're going to bounce to the amazing Karen. And we've got fans everywhere going on. So, Eileen, it's so good having you with us. How have you been, Eileen?
Good morning, everybody. I am in Goulburn in New South Wales, not about 4 or 5 hours from Sydney. So I'm just doing that road trip.
3.5.
Okay, wow. 3.5 hours. I've been corrected. 3.5 hours from Sydney. and I'm doing the road trip to celebrate my retirement that I have decided 2 years ago. So here I am on a road trip at a hotel, and you can do whatever you want these days. So it's wonderful, just wonderful.
Oh my God. So round of applause to Eileen. And again, for all our viewers across the world, thank you for tuning in. Phyllis, and just apologies to those reading. I can't read the names of all of your comments. So if I don't call out your names to our fans, just know that I love you. But just want to say a big thank you. Smash that like, share, and comment. And Eileen, you're obviously in thrive mode right now. So obviously you're thriving. We can just tell by looking at you. But I want to ask you a bit of a darker question as we sort of go down this rabbit hole. Survival, we've all been there. What does survival mean to you? And can you tell us about a time in your life that you just had to survive? And if you don't mind me going, asking
that's a
okay. Question.
Now, I think that's an awesome question. I've been thinking, survivor. I mean, I actually had been very, very fortunate. I didn't really have to survive so much. My mom had 13 children. I grew up for the last 22 years in the protection of my mom and in Singapore, where we had a relative safe country, where the government was all about taking care of its people. I grew up during the time of Lee Kuan Yew. So it was quite a safe country that I grew up. Then after that, when I came to Australia, I was in the comfort, in the security of my husband, who has his own home, his own business. So really, survival for me, survival in a certain way is that no one's going to stop me from achieving whatever I want to do. And with an attitude of adventure, I'll give it a go. So I would thrive in wherever I go. So that's my survival. Leave it. Don't complain. Give it your best shot and just thrive. I think I was just conditioned in an environment where everything will survive if you have that attitude.
Oh, I love it. There you go. Round of applause to Eileen. I complain too much. That's my problem. And speaking of the antithesis of complaining, we got legendary Loretta. I couldn't imagine you complaining during a hurricane. Loretta, how you doing?
I'm doing just wonderful. Thanks for having me on. And as far as survive, I think probably one of my darkest times was when I had to go through breast cancer. But at the same time, it was one of those things where I couldn't, or I wouldn't anticipate anything until I knew what the facts were. So we had to go through, there was a whole bunch of testing all the time and everything. And my boyfriend was like, always worried. And I said, we don't know anything until we get the results back. So we can't worry until we find out what the results are, and then go from there and move on to the next thing. So we always use I guess I would always use, positivity to thrive with dealing with things, because I think in the long run, we're thrown these curveballs, challenges, things to see, to test our strength and everything, to see how far, are we going to let it take us, or are we going to overcome it? So, yeah, definitely.
Now, the first thing I'm going to react to, and I think I could see Karen picking this one up as well. You were the poor lady and congratulations for conquering cancer. That, like, if cancer can't kill you, nothing can. The bit that I immediately reacted to was like, you were the one with the breast cancer, but it was your boyfriend giving you the negative energy. What was wrong with the guy, Loretta?
He's the worrier of the relationship. So same with when the hurricanes are coming, he's the worrier and I just relax. So that's okay.
Now, that's given me a good arc to probe on, because, and again, so you were the one in literal survival mode. You had breast cancer. People die from breast cancer. So you're literally in a fight for your life situation. And you were keeping it together, but you're getting negative energy towards you from external sources. How did you repel that negative energy or deflect it? How did that mechanism work, Loretta?
Again, I think you just have to, until you find out what the results are, what the answers are to these, the tests and so forth, there's nothing to really worry about. It's just like with hurricanes here in Florida. We can watch it, we can see it, we track it, but until it's on us, we can't, there's nothing to worry about, because, anybody who knows hurricanes, they can take a right turn in the, blink of an eye and everything. So if I'm going to worry about it from the minute it comes off the coast of Africa, I'm going to spend most of the summer and stuff, in a state of panic and stuff. So I just refuse to let that happen.
Oh, Loretta, we love your based red pill mentality. Round of applause to you, Loretta. And we're going to bounce over the amazing Karen Clark shortly. I'm just going to react to the comments. We've got Phyllis Marlene Benstein with us. Phyllis, absolutely love you. And also to apologies, I can't read all the names in the comments because just StreamYard limitations. But we've got a wonderful lady from LinkedIn saying, that was me too, Loretta, when I had thyroid cancer. So to you, it just says LinkedIn user on my end. So to whoever that is, we love you and thank you. And Karen Clark, so good to having you with us, Karen. And I get to see you all the time in Brisbane, don't I?
We do, and it's wonderful catching up there. I'm actually from the Gold Coast and run up to Brisbane once a month to catch up with you, Ed, which is amazing. Yeah.
Oh. Now, Karen, I'd love to hear your reactions to Eileen and Loretta, and tell us what you think.
I can't wait. So I love these two amazing ladies. First of all, Eileen, your attitude to life has been incredible. You've just always, the way that you talked about for you, there wasn't anything in your life that would stop you. And you always had that attitude of moving forward, trying hard, or trying to get your results, etc. And just knowing that you were safe and secure, which is amazing that you haven't really experienced any time when you didn't feel secure. Loretta, no wonder you're a coach. Your level of awareness is incredible. And, you've brought up some points that I'm sure you coach, and we coach with my coaching training as well. And so things like, and we are not taught this normally, is when something goes wrong, and I applaud you, like Ed said, for going through that process of having breast cancer. When something goes wrong, we are brought up and taught and programmed to react, this is bad. And of course, as you say, nothing is bad until we make it bad. And until we know everything about it and how bad it is going to be, we can actually press the pause button and say, okay, well, I'm not going to react, I'm going to respond. and how am I going to respond to this situation? And by the time we work out different ways of responding, it's quite often, not necessarily with what you were going through, but quite often with other things that we think are going to be bad, have disappeared, or something else has come up that's going to get us into a better situation. So you've said so many things today that just triggered my, oh yeah, we coach that and we coach that, and you are amazing. As far as survival goes for me, I have a slightly different belief or perspective around what survival is than you, Aileen. And for me, if someone's in survival, it means they're not thriving. This is my interpretation of it. So for me, if we're in survival, it's because we're dealing with something that has caused that part of our brain that comes in and keeps us alive to be working, and we feel usually out of control, that we don't have much control in the situation, and we're simply surviving. So I don't want to be in survival mode. I want to be in thrive, and that's what I thrive to do every day. Does that make sense?
Absolutely brilliant. And lead with style, Karen. Round of applause. And that legendary lady is actually Amy Hammond. We love Amy Hammond, and I don't know why it's not displaying her name. I blame Streamer. So let's all wave to Amy Hammond. We're
Hi,
huge
Amy.
And Amy, I had no idea Amy Hammond had thyroid cancer. Well, there you go. You can't be killed by conventional weapons as well, Amy. So there you go. Oh, amazing. And let's bounce back to amazing Eileen Avard. Eileen, I got to say, I love your positivity and optimism. What are your reactions to Loretta and Karen, and what are you thinking?
Oh, thank you. I love the attitude of what Loretta was saying, that although she was the one that has the cancer, and yet the boyfriend wants the worry. In life situations, when somebody is like in what I understood as in my kind of situation, when you have somebody that is very worried, the other person stands to have the yin and yang, the contra energy. So then the other person just take on that leadership attitude to be calm, that I need to be. So thank you. You've taken away all the negative energy, worry from me. I have the space to thrive and survive. That give me the space to focus and not worry unnecessary. Because if the energy, the worry is all be taken away, you then have this space. And what Loretta is nodding, yeah, she's probably thanking her boyfriend for magnet that away and give her the space to think clearly, to be able to survive and thrive in the period of darkness in her cancer. And so I really say sometimes we just have to turn around and say thank you to that person. I know my husband sometimes thank me a lot because I may be the survivor, but he's the thriver. He's the one with all these great ideas, great inspiration. But that does not mean that I did not contribute to that growth space. And why people like to work with me is because they have all these entrepreneurs' ideas. They have all these ideas, but sometimes certain things you just need to put them into perspective for them. And I just love the way that Karen just did into putting into certain thing into perspective for being a thriver, a survivor, or a thriver. I think having been in a very principled positions, I have been taught to look at it from both the yin and the yang. So it allows me to saying that try and have that middle path and don't be so quick to judge, but then allows you to try in a very, very quiet way. So I just love when Karen say you either react or you respond, and I love to try. And I just love how Karen put that into perspective as well. So thanks, Ed, for giving me the opportunity to respond. Thank you.
Oh, it's a pleasure. And a quick acknowledgement: your husband's a wonderful veteran. So there you go. We love your husband. Wayne's a great guy, so you can probably hear it. So we love you, Wayne. Top veteran. I can see parts of him in the reflection on the mirror, which is quite cool at your hotel. Oh, pleasure. No, it's interesting reactions. I love the reactions we're getting. And a big thank you. We've got Ahmed from Canada in Missa Isiagua. I'm not going to try and pronounce that because I think I'm going to offend all my Canadians out there. And judging by Loretta's laugh, she obviously knows how to pronounce it, and I don't. I just got to say, Canadians have really cool names of their cities. There you go. But I just want to say, big thank you. If you just come in, smash that like, sharing, comment. Please connect with Eileen Avad, Loretta Remy, and Karen Clark. And also, just a quick mention, apologies from some of our other panelists today. Our other panelists are traveling, they're on airplanes, they're moving house. One of them went to see Moulin Rouge last night, so she said she's going to be hungover in a hotel room of her lady friend. So, and I'm not allowed to tell you that that's Simone Lord. Whoops.
I was going to ask, so I'm glad you told me.
Yeah, so she's busy, and I'm jealous. She's committing sin and debauchery, so I'm very jealous. So there you go. But I just got to say, big thank you to everyone. Now, I want to bounce back to amazing Loretta, who is an absolute insightful character. And I want to, again, I know everyone's been really positive today, and I love the positivity, but I'm going to take things in a darker direction. I want to ask Loretta, and I want you to think, and if you don't mind me asking this darker question, but when you're at your lowest and you're feeling fear and anxiety, in your lowest point, how did you get out of that bottom? And I mean, when you're really in the depth of despair, how did you sort of dig deep to get yourself out of that, Loretta?
For me, it's all about reflection. So, several times in my life, of course, going through the breast cancer, but even other times when I've had to make decisions and I wasn't sure what was the right thing to do or whatever, I had to get somewhere quiet with myself and just kind of like, let it come to me and, kind of, work out the pros and cons and everything, but just in a quiet sort of space, and got rid of all of the outsized noise sometimes that can, like with the boyfriend, sometimes the worry, the anxiety of his can cause you to get very, uptight and everything. So sometimes if you get into that quiet space and almost like reach down and like pull yourself out of it and everything, because it's not, you're not in a good spot there and you want to get into a better spot. So, the only one who can really help you do that is yourself. And if not, then maybe you have to look for somebody to do that on a professional level. But for me, I always just kind of reflect and then almost like willfully, like just pull myself out of it.
Wow. Incredibly well said. And I got to say, I love your, sense of virtue on that one. The other thing I was going to ask you as well, and you're the opposite of victimhood. Like the word victimhood came up in terms of you're the opposite of a victim. So if victimhood's here, Loretta is the other side of the spectrum, right? Mm-hmm. Now, victimhood, I want to ask this of Karen and Eileen in a moment shortly, but I want to talk about victimhood for a moment. So the reason is when it comes to survival, victimhood is often something that holds us back. And again, we're not here to talk about me, but I've been a victim before. So I've played the victim role, which I'm quite ashamed of. What is victimhood to you, Loretta? And to those who are feeling victimhood, what do you say to them?
So I think a lot of times it's something that we perceive more than is actual. They say 10 people can have the same situation occur to them and have 10 different reactions to it. And I think that it's all in our perspective, how it goes through. A short story. Growing up, my parents divorced. So my mom raised us, did a wonderful job. And when we were younger, finances weren't the greatest, and we had older cousins, being a big Italian family. So our older cousins, when they went through their closet or whatever, would give us hand-me-downs. I thought it was the greatest thing. My cousins had very good fashion sense. They gave me some cool stuff, and it was like almost like Christmas getting a bag of clothes from my brother was totally mortified. He thought it was the absolute like worst thing. Like it was like lower than low, like he couldn't like deal with it and everything. And it wasn't until years later when we talked about it that I even realized this was going on, where I was so happy and he was so miserable about all of it and everything. And it was the same situation. We both got a bag of clothes, and yet it was two different reactions on how we took it. So he thought he was the victim of having to wear these, used clothes. And I thought it was, I was like the princess or something getting new things.
Wow, there you go. So, round of applause to Loretta. There you go. And to Loretta's brother, if you are watching, you've got an amazing sister. That's all I'll say to Loretta's brother if she is watching. So I hope he doesn't send you an abusive Christmas card or anything, Loretta.
No.
Let's bounce over to Karen. Karen, love to hear your thoughts and reactions.
Well, yes, as you say, your brother has an amazing sister. The more I get to know you, Loretta, the more privileged I am to know you. I've just got a question. I realized I've left a fan on in the room off here. Do you hear a noise? Because I can
it's loud and clear and top quality.
Okay, good. So yeah, victimhood. A very interesting one, and I often wonder why some people have this mentality where they slip into victimhood or live in victimhood all the time, and others are like you and I, Loretta, where we have a different view of life, and it is about each of our views of life. So you brought up a very good point, is that to understand that two people can have the same situation. Even in families, they're brought up the same, usually, 3, 4, 5, 8, whatever children, according to the parents, and yet every child has a different view of their upbringing. And so it's important to understand that we all do have our own view of the world. And there's a number of reasons why we have it. It's part of our learning, actually, in hypnotherapy and NLP, as you know, Ed. And so, it's because of a number of different variations that cause each one of our unique views of the world. But bringing that to victimhood, it's like, why do some people always do this? It's that's a reason why. And they see the outside world and outside situations and circumstances as them being a victim of it. And, you've all seen the lesson where when you point out there are actually 3 fingers pointing back at you. And so with the victimhood, I would always suggest to the person that we're responsible for everything that happens in our lives. I believe we're responsible for everything that we attract. And so even if you drive somewhere and have a car accident, and you can say, well, it wasn't my fault, someone rams you from behind or whatever. Wasn't my fault, right? They ran up my backside. However, we're responsible because we took that route. We drove the car that day. And so it's a really difficult one for people who are inclined to become a victim to actually take on the responsibility that we're responsible for everything that happens in our lives. Everything, he did it, she did it. And so what do you say about victimhood? It's a choice. It's a choice.
And do you think as well, and that, and again, I know we've spoken about this off camera, that the fake news media, society pushes that victimhood is awesome narrative. What do you think of that one, Karen? Because I know we've had many red pill chats off camera on this one.
So, the programming that comes through from society, including the news, is so massive. And I really personally believe that it's not to help us to thrive. Okay, we're not helped to thrive by the news and the programming of society. Why? That's another conversation. However, we are really programmed through many different ways to be living in society in a particular way, and often to be beholden to, and to require the assistance of the government or the system as it is. That's my belief. So the news that we don't get, that's why coaches actually, I believe that in the modern world, coaches are becoming so popular because most coaches look at things from a totally different view, a different perspective. And we understand what causes our results, what causes us to thrive or not thrive, and how to break out of that. And, entrepreneurship is something that was never even taught at universities until very recently. So it wasn't encouraged for people to be independent and go out and be an entrepreneur or make their own success in business. It was taught to go to university and become what's the word? to get a job in a profession.
Like a cog in the machine, like select your designation and achieve that designation.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I'm always amazed when I hear that, oh, yes, this university has actually got an entrepreneurship program now, or, someone is starting to teach being an entrepreneur and breaking out of the mold, which is quite interesting.
Yeah. Beautiful, Karen. Love your work. Just amazing. We're going to bounce over to Eileen in just a moment. Just want to react to the comments. A great one from Amy earlier, legendary Amy Hammond from Florida, who we love. And it's actually a great point that Amy made. Not realizing my cancer had traveled outside the thyroid and receiving the clear from my doctor, it also makes me, what if I traveled and taken on the stress about worrying other people, what would have happened to me? So I think Amy makes a good point of reflecting, saying that Amy obviously repelled that negative energy, but what if she took it on? Well, I think we all know what would have happened, Amy, if you took it on. You wouldn't be here to make that comment. So power to you, Amy. We got Samuel, we love you. We got John Telson. John Telson is reflected on, yes, he got hand-me-downs from his brothers, but it was like Christmas for him. And he looks at the positive in the situation. So I love it. I was going to say, if you just tuned in, hit that like, share, and comment. Please say hello. And also to make sure you follow Loretta Remy, Karen Clark, and Eileen with us. And I was just going to say as well, a lot of our panelists have been taken out. They're flying, moving houses. And one of them had a fantastic night last night and is in a hotel room with her lady friends, committing sin and debauchery. And we're all jealous. Put up your hand if I'm jealous, because I certainly am. Nothing like sin and debauchery. And speaking about the opposite of sin and debauchery, it would be virtue and kindness. We've got Eileen. Eileen, please unmute. What are you thinking? Tell us your thoughts.
Well, I like to respond on the victimhood. Why is that there's some people in victimhood? And it's like, if your view of the world is always the poor me, and that you need to be rescued, you need that, whether you have handout clothes. My upbringing is very similar to Loretta. We always hand out clothes. So if you view the thing is that you're being patronized, people give you handout thing, or you're so grateful, your view of the world would then give you the kind of view whether you're in victimhood or you are in a thriving positions. So it's because now nobody stopped me with my view. I will never be in that victimhood. So, but however, I was in a very, very dark place for a period of time when I first came to Australia. When I first came I love Australia. Within 2-3 years, I settled out very quickly. But was that period of adjustment? So it was also the time where we have children was coming. My husband and I started a new business. So when you're in new business, your thinking, your focus has to be for the business. So it takes up a lot of energy. But I got into a very, very dark place where I was very stressed, totally stressed. It got into a position where I didn't even know such a thing called depression. I didn't know. And I was so stressed that even when accidentally hit my hand, I bruised so easily. And I was going great. I didn't even know that I was surviving in that moment. I didn't know I was in depression. And but somehow, being a person that never give up, I seek out help. So I seek out a community about Buddhism, about Tao, and that's where I learned about principle of accountability, principle of learning to show kindness and compassion. And that's how I did not get into the victimhood, nor did I get into I survived, but it was about being accountable, and it's about taking responsibility in how you have the view of the world. Is always about showing kindness because somebody else out there could need your help. And so that's how I view victimhood through choice, through gratitude.
Wow. One interesting thing is like when you're talking about the physical effects of in survival mode, like you would bruise easily, you felt stressed and that sort of thing. I imagine that, you know, that shock to your system because you're saying Singapore, you had quite a good life. Then all of a sudden you're thrown in Australia and you're like, what the hell? Where am I? What happened to my old life? I can imagine how you would have felt there, right? And you're going through physical experiences. So you would bruise easily. Were you getting headaches? What was the actual physical symptoms of that stress like?
No, I did not get any headache. Like I said, I didn't know such a thing as depressions. Yeah, we don't talk about help. But I was very reactive. I was like somebody would say something and I will flare, I will get angry so easily. I was impatient, I was intolerant. And that's why, and then for a long time I was shouting at the kids. You go through that kind of periods you think that you're not good enough. You do not know it was truly surviving. And when you're surviving, your time for kindness, compassion is all reactive. There is no time to respond because your whole body do not have that space. Your whole body, the ability to reflect is all about coping. And when you cope, I have very short fuse. I just react and I explode. And that is why, having been through that period of 5 to 7 years, I did not like me. So my choice is now consciously show kindness and have a positive attitude to help somebody to thrive, because that was an ugly period. And I never want anybody to experience it. And that's the reason why I love to talk about transition. That emotional space, it sets the light out of somebody. And that's where people can go into suicide so easily. If they do not have somebody, even just one person to listen to them. And the one person could be you that turned their life around. So that's survivor and thriving.
Wow, just brilliant. And one other arc I want to dig on, the other thing that came up, and I like where you were going here, right? The touchiness. And I've been there as well. How when you're feeling down, and more talking about me here, because I love your rawness, is that when you're feeling down, you kind of, you're hyper reactive. Someone can say something to you and it sets you off. One of our friends, Juanita Smith, she'll be watching. We all love Juanita Smith. She's a master hypnotherapist. Interestingly, she shared this great photo on LinkedIn that went viral. And I think a lot of you have seen it. And basically describing the photo, there were two guys, right? I think two characters so much. And one was tripped over and bawling their eyes out, right? And then the other person was saying, hey, what's wrong with you? Why are you so weak? It's just a minor trip. Then it had the other bit of the graphic which showed this person basically having the worst life ever. In other words, this person had been carrying all this trauma for years, and when the minor misstep happens, they just explode and blow up. And I've certainly been there as well. And I got to say, I love your honesty. And just one last question I want to ask you before we bounce to Loretta, Eileen, is that where was that point where you said, I need to change? Because you said you didn't even know what depression was. So obviously you went down this slide, probably unconscious to it. Where was that point where you kind of, I suppose, developed consciousness and you said, whoa, this isn't me? Do you remember that point or any experience around that?
Absolutely. Totally. I remember that very, very clearly as if it was like yesterday.
Oh.
It was, like I said, I had 3 young children and I was very reactive. I was very angry. And I was lashing out more of my anger, my frustration on my children, and especially on my firstborn. I was always, I wanted him to do things in a certain way. And being a child, he wants to do things the opposite. And I was always getting angry at him until one morning I heard, you are going to break his will. I heard that voice, you are going to break his will. It was so quiet. It was in that moment I had to seek an alternative. So I put it out there to the universe. I put it out to God. I prayed to Jesus. I prayed to Mary. I said, show me a way. And it was shortly after that, I was traveling. I was traveling back home. When sometimes you get to a point where nothing works, you just have to say, I'm going home. I'm sick. And, you look for your mom, you look for
did you go back to Singapore, did you? Did you fly back?
I did. Yeah, I went back for home. I went back home for a few days, but was on my way back on an aeroplane that I met this called Xavier, who introduced me to a community. And that was the Buddhism community that I had been in. And that was when things got turned around for me, how to become a better mom. And that was why my thing is how to work with children and women. That's my life story, how that moment, you going to break his will.
Oh, that's incredible. Round of applause to Eileen. I just have to make this remark, and this is me being more of a guy into entertainment. I just had this vision of Eileen going back to Singapore on the spiritual pilgrimage, and then she became a Buddhist. And I don't know what happened. Anyone used to watch the show Kung Fu with David Carradine? I had this vision of Eileen at the Buddhist temple, like with her head shaved, dodging spears, and she can't leave the temple until she can walk on the rice paper without ripping it. And yeah, so Eileen, if you piss off Eileen, she'll just she can dodge bullets and dodge spears and sort of throw you on your back without you even realizing. So Eileen, I got to say, you're like, I'm going to call you female David Carradine. There you go. You're like the Kung Fu Shaolin. I love it. Love it. Great story. Loretta, I just want to bounce over to you. Loretta, there's been so much greatness from Karen and Eileen. I'd love to hear all your reactions and thoughts, Loretta.
When you put yourself in a survivor mode, it really plays on your health and stuff. When I was younger, way younger, I used to worry a lot and everything, and I used to have stomach pains all the time. And then as I grew older and, learned more about it and everything, stress can do some damage to you. And, you have to find a way to manage that stress and work with it. Or otherwise, it can cause major concerns, and it can cause minor concerns that you might not even realize and everything. So, I had learned to realize that the worrying part of things sometimes isn't going to get it done, that the action is what needs to get done to thrive, or you're going to get stuck in that survivor mode. So.
And one thing that comes to mind is, and I know we've spoken again a lot about this off camera, it's that worrying cycle that I used to be in. It's like you worry about one thing, then you worry about one thing, and you spend all your time worrying without any action. I used to be like that. That sort of led to me becoming a homeless veteran. And I was going to say, when you're in that worrying cycle, and Eileen's talked about it, you talked about it, and as Karen, when you're in that worrying cycle, how do you sort of break that hamster wheel as it will sort of cycle?
For me, I think it's just the fact of that life is still going on, that we still have to continue to do what is necessary. Um, for us here in the States, 9/11 was a major, major, tragedy for our country and everything. I'm sure, everybody around the world saw it. And there was people around me who completely like shut down. Like for me, yeah, it was shocking. It was, unbelievable and stuff. But I knew I still had to continue going to work. I still had bills that had to be paid. I still needed to, take care of my life and stuff. And there was others that just went down a spiral, and I, had to like kind of like pull on them and say, come on, come with me. You can't just stay down there and everything, sitting watching that TV hours and hours at a time, watching all the news coverage and everything wasn't getting them anywhere, wasn't putting them anywhere. And it was just putting them in a state of, like, just like a frozen state almost, where they were unable to continue and stuff.
Wow, incredible. I got a great question aimed at you, Loretta, from Ahmed in Canada, is asking about financial pressure being a major stress in life. Love your thoughts on that question there. What do you think about financial? You talked about bills, for example, part of reality. What is it? The three certainties of life is it death, taxes, there's something else. I can't remember. It's like getting old, death, and taxes, the certainty of life. Financial pressure. Tell us a bit about that, Loretta, and how it impacts us.
Oh, I mean, like you said, we all have bills. You know, even if we had no debt, we still have monthly electric bills and stuff like that just keep coming, and other financial situations. Um, the best thing we can do about our financial situations is work to relieve it, but worrying about it isn't going to help it. By worrying about a situation, whether it's financial, whether it's a hurricane hitting Florida, whatever, doesn't help the situation. It doesn't clarify the situation or bring any resolution to it. It just puts you into a state of anxiety and stuff. So stress is definitely, financial matters can definitely cause stress and everything. But what we need to do is go above that and figure out the solution of how we can relieve those situations.
And I think that's the sort of crescendo of what we're talking about, the difference between a victim and a leader. I think you said it there. A victim in that scenario, let's say you can't keep up with your bills. That's the truth of the matter, hypothetically. The victim would blame it on the system, blame it on, the system, they lost their job, blame racism, whatever it is. Whereas the leader does exactly what you just said. Okay, here's the problem. What am I going to do about it? I love that sort of division between the two worlds you sort of got over there, Loretta.
Mm-hmm.
Brilliant. We love you. Round of applause to you, Loretta. Amazing. We're going to bounce over to Karen for the moment. And we've got Kemi Adekumbi. Kemi Adekumbi is our legendary health coach friend from America we love. So big wave to Kemi Adekumbi. We love Kemi. She's an amazing lady. If you just come in, please smash that like, share, and comment. If you are watching the recording, which you probably are, as well, please connect with Loretta Remy, Karen Clark, and Eileen Avad. And our other panelists, as I was saying before, our other panelists are on planes, moving house. And again, one is committing sin and debauchery after watching a beautiful show. And we're just amazingly jealous of her. At least I am, which is all very good. So power to them all. And let's bounce over to Karen. Karen, please tell us everything. Monologue, tell us your reactions. Give us all your golden nuggets and red pills.
Oh my gosh, so much said in this last piece. And Eileen, I want to pay tribute to you, because in the beginning when we first came on, you said, my life has been amazing. I have never done anything other than, have a great life. And then you started.
And she was lying. It turned out Arlene was lying, and we got her. Yes.
And then you shared that you did. However, it pointed out to people that you got out of it and you didn't dwell on it. And I'll talk to that first. Actually, I was going to talk to the financial thing, but I'd like to talk to that point too. So I think it's amazing that you talked about surviving, and you talked about where you were in that dark place, and you were building a new business, and you had young children, and you slipped into depression, which is a mental thing and a chemical thing, and you didn't actually know what it was, and then you realized that there were all these things going on, and you were reacting, and you had a short fuse, and you were yelling at the children, and you were bruising easily. And then you went on a plane, and because you decided to go home, and you met someone who introduced you to Buddhism, which was your way out. And I think Buddhism is amazing, that it teaches the beautiful parts of our being, like being accountable, being compassionate, and kindness, and living through choice and gratitude. What I want to ask you, though, because I have a little theory about this, is, were you sitting next to this person who introduced you on the plane?
Yes. There was two. I traveled with one of my son, and there was 3 seats. So the stranger had to take that one seat next to me.
Right. So
And
for
he
me,
was-
sorry.
So he turned around and he looked at me. I was eating meat at that time. Said, a good person to share. Yeah.
So I have a theory about this, and that's, for me, as you know, I study and teach the universal laws, and you obviously, for me, that was the universe giving you something to help you. So that is, for me, what I believe what happens is that we are putting out there all the time messages, and we get back. So you were asking for help and you got it. The universe presented that help. Yes, Edward?
And on that note, in support of Eileen, I love where you're going. Eileen was the one who created the opportunity. Eileen was the one who said, I'm going to go to Singapore Airlines, get a business class flight, and I'm going to go to Singapore. So if Eileen didn't do that, she never would create the opportunity. So I guess, did Eileen manifest that opportunity, you think, Karen?
Absolutely. And so yes, the universe gives us what we're asking for, what we want, and what. So here's a couple of things. The content of our lives is the curriculum of our evolution. So even though we don't ask for anything that happens to us, we don't realize we're asking. Every part of our lives is teaching us something that will help us to be more knowledgeable. So as far as the finance, that leads me into the finances, and that you brought up, Edward. Financial stress, I believe, is one of the worst things for people to endure. We all are in stress mode when we're in financial stress. And in a way, I mean, there are other things, moving house, as you say, health, really dark health issues, that we're given diagnosis that we're going to die or we could die, or something that's very, very threatening. Financial is probably on that same level. So I want to suggest that it's about our thoughts and the questions we ask. And so what happens is we're thinking 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. You all probably know this, and most of them we're unaware of. And we're also asking questions all the time. How am I going to do this? How am I going to get through that? How am I going to pay the bills this month? And so what I suggest with financial stress, along with everything else, is to ask a different question. And I've actually done this myself when I was in really bad financial situation, in the middle of a number of developments, and we had a global recession, which was not the last one, but the one before. And, here I was with a huge, massive loss every year, and not enough funds to cover it all, with all these developments and different stages. property developments. And so I was in that situation where I was waking up every day. How am I going to get through this? How am I going to pay? Do I have enough money to cover my costs this month, etc., etc.? And what happens is there is a law of non-resistance that says you get what you focus on. You get what you focus on. And I was actually, this is before I was a coach, before I knew anything about the universal laws. And I was in Australia. This is when I was in New Zealand. I was in Australia on a boot camp thingy. And they covered this point that day. They covered this point, you get what you focus on. I don't know if they called it the law of resistance. And I went away that night and I went, oh my gosh, basically every minute of my day, I'm thinking these things. I'm focusing on this. What if the bank forecloses on me? What if the bank says pay down some of your debt? What if I'm going to lose everything? I'm going to end up bankrupt. And I was having these thoughts all the time. And so, I got this ask a different question. And the question I asked was huge. It wasn't how am I going to pay my bills like I was asking. It was how am I going to create another $200,000 to $300,000? Big question, right? And that's I'm not going to tell you the rest of the story. If you want to know it, you can connect with me. However, that is how I turned everything around in my life at that point. It's because I asked a different question. And so that is what I'm suggesting. We don't realize we're asking these little questions all the time. And they're questions that we don't really want the answer to. We don't want to know how am I going to get through paying my bills. We want to know how am I going to have an extra $10,000 in the bank after I've paid my bills each month, or $100,000 in the bank. And when we ask these different questions, just like when we have these different thoughts, that's what we get back.
Oh, brilliant. Well said. Brown plus Karen. Karen, amazing. A few arcs there. And just to let you know, thank you for all your comments and love and everything. Make sure you connect with Loretta, Remy, Karen Clark, and Eileen Avard. We're actually going to wrap things up shortly. We've got about 8 minutes left until the broadcast finishes. And what we're going to do is we're going to move into final thoughts and closing comments. So we're going to give Eileen, Loretta, and then Karen an opportunity to give their final reflections and closing thoughts for the audience. And just going to say as well, again, please connect with them all on LinkedIn, and love your work, everyone. So final thoughts and closing comments. Let's hear it from Eileen Avard.
Thanks, Ed. Oh my God, what a fascinating topic. Survivor and thrive. I'm so glad I came and joined you ladies and Ed. I liked what there's no wrong answer. There is only wrong questions. If you keep asking, how am I going to pay the bill? How am I going to pay the bill? The answers will work harder, work harder, work harder. And then it's all you but survivor. But if you ask, how could I have some more, how could I have money so I could help other people? Then you're going to get a different set of way of answers that's going to come to you. And it's all about thriving. To me, is about asking the right question. So for me, it's how could I serve? How could I help other people? I'm always presented with all this opportunity. People that comes into my environment, into my space, they may ask questions. And I'll just say something. They say, oh, you're so helpful. I'm not even sure what I have said, but I suppose it is about who we are as a person. It's who we are as a person. The values that I live by is honesty, simplicity, and compassion. If those are the things that I live with, I do not feel I lack anything.
Well said. Eileen, we love you. Can we give it up for Eileen? Absolutely amazing. And Loretta, can we get your final thoughts and closing comments?
Sure. So my belief is that living in a state of surviving isn't really living, because we've put ourselves into a hole that's going to cause us health issues and so much more. So we have to learn to ask the right questions. I love that, Karen. Love it. Ask the right questions of ourselves to get into the thriving mode instead of the surviving mode. And that way we can live through a life of gratitude and servitude to help other people and stuff, and not be worrying about how am I going to pay the bills or what's going to happen next or so forth. And I think that's where, um, if more of us thought that way, I think in the long run, it could help the world out a lot too.
Wow. Brilliant. Well said, Loretta. Powerful as always. Thank you. And Karen, your final thoughts and closing comments.
So, my beautiful, beautiful session. You know, when you first told me that what we were covering, I didn't even see the points we were covering. I sort of thought, oh my gosh, this is huge. This is quite difficult. However, when we think something is huge, then it makes us small. So I very quickly changed that. My final thoughts.
This is a nothing issue, and I'm awesome was the replacement thinking. This is a nothing topic. This is like what's in my fridge sort of topic.
I've got this. You know, I've got this. It's not huge. So my final closing thoughts would be: have a dream. First of all, even if you're in survival at the moment, work out what it is you would love your life to be like. Have a dream. And then learn with your thoughts and your questions how to bring that dream to fruition. Because if you're sending it out there, you get it back, remember? So have a dream. Work out what it is that you would love in every area of your life to be how you would love to be living. Because until you do that, because we're programmed to think about where we are and the things we don't want all the time, we attract more of that. Keep coming back to your dream. That's my closing thought for the day.
Oh my God, noble. Round of applause and big thank you to everyone. And also too, again, please smash that like, sharing, comment, especially if you're watching the recording. Eileen Navard, Karen Clark, Loretta Remy are amazing. Also connect with our other panelists who couldn't be with us today. And also too, it was Lassie's birthday yesterday. So please keep that in mind. Lassie's birthday yesterday. Send her lots of birthday love, and she's amazing. So stay tuned for our next one. Friends, we're going to finish up there. And thank you, ladies. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you to all our supporters across the world. We'll see you all soon. Bye, everyone. Thank you again.
Thank you. Bye.
Happy
Bye-bye.